digitization and AI is becoming a key priority and part of the national agenda.
Nuclear power, it's just something, maybe gas, etc. It's just got to be something that has that consistent base level.
A lot of initiatives in the kingdom, to bring almost more than 20 gigawatt of renewable energy into the grid.
If we could just get that certainty and confidence in delivery to make sure that when we're putting in these larger data centers in particular, you know that the power is going to be there at the point that you need it.
John, what have you observed? Are we enthusiastic about adoption, or have we figured out what we can do with it yet? You're watching W.Media Deep Dive, our special video podcast series where we take a closer look at the cloud and data center industry and connectivity ecosystem across South Asia and the Middle East. My name is Deborah Grey. I'm the editor-in-chief here at W.Media, and I'll be your host for today. The episode today revolves around AI infrastructure investments across the Middle East, specifically how it is impacting where and how we are building our data centers and our connectivity infrastructure. Joining us today to discuss this are our very special guests, Dame Dawn Childs, CEO, Pure DC, and Kamel Al Tawil, Managing Director, Middle East and North Africa, Equinix. Welcome to W.Media Deep Dive. How are we doing today?
Great, thank you.
We're doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Well, the pleasure is all ours. Before we go any further, I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about your own professional journey and also your organization.
Certainly. So I've only actually been in the data center sector for some 3 years now. Prior to that, though, I did a lot of work on critical infrastructure and aviation. So I was in the military, the Air Force, for some 20 years, looking after maintenance teams, fixing aircraft. I then was the head of engineering at Gatwick Airport for a while. Again, critical infrastructure there. I moved on to a foray into Merlin Entertainment, so theme parks and zoos, which was very exciting. It was a global portfolio and very interesting engineering standards. I then did a couple of years with National Grid, so looking after the electrical and gas infrastructure in the United Kingdom before moving to Pure Data Centers. And here at Pure, we build and operate data centers for the hyperscale customers globally.
Kamel, how about you? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much. So my name is Kamel Al Tawil. I'm the managing director for Equinix for the Middle East, North Africa region. So Equinix is the digital infrastructure company for the world. We're one of the largest digital infrastructure companies. Globally, we operate more than 270 plus data centers in more than 34 countries and more than 70 metros. I've been with Equinix for the past 5 years, leading the MENA region, and where we're seeing a variety of investments, and we launched many of our data centers here, including in Dubai, our DX3, in Oman, our MC1, and just recently we launched in Salalah, our SN1, which is a key connectivity hub for the Middle East region. Prior to Equinix, I've done many stints in a variety of companies, mainly in the IT sector. So some of the major multinational IT and hyperscalers in the region before moving into the Equinix just short of 5 years now.
So you have seen the AI landscape evolve in the Middle East, the wider digital infrastructure evolve in the Middle East. What have you observed, Kamel?
So, look, if you look globally and from an industry perspective, we had a lot of, I would say, breakthrough moment or kind of a defining moment from the year 2000 with the advance of the internet and the whole internet economy, Then moving forward, like in 2010, we had the whole cloud perspective where cloud has really so internet democratized access to the public, cloud democratized IT to the enterprises, and we've seen a wave of digital transformation. And in the 2010 2020, a kind of a defining moment happened with the pandemic and COVID, where it really accelerated digital transformation to unprecedented levels. So during that short period, if a company did not transform in a digital way, it's no longer in business. So the whole advance on digital economy and digital transformation has really been accelerated by cloud adoption. And then when we thought things were like going to calm down, we had the whole generative AI evolution, and now like internet democratized uh, access. Now AI is really democratizing knowledge. So the growth is unprecedented. We've seen the amount of investments being put into generative AI. And yeah, so we've seen a lot of announcements in many countries, and a lot of people are now resembling the AI race into the arms race, because without AI, you're like kind going to be left behind. But we are still very much into the beginning of the journey, because I mean, if you see what happened last month with the complete new wave of AI, like you've
Yes,
heard.
DeepSeek. Oh my God, what a game.
Absolutely. So, and in my view, that AI has democratized access to knowledge. So me, you, anyone who doesn't really have you don't need to have a PhD to write a good essay, because you go to an AI platform and they will write a very decent. I mean, today they will not be able to write for you a Shakespearean novel, but they can write for you something very, very decent, and many applications on that. So, but what happened is now what you mentioned, DeepSeek. So AI democratized access to knowledge. DeepSeeks are going to democratize access to AI.
Exactly.
So it's a complete change in landscape, and we're seeing the amount of investments that's happening, the amounts of progress that's happening, and we still believe we're still at the tip of the iceberg. So still a lot and lot to come.
Dom, do you also share that belief that it's this untamed beast, but it can be useful if it's used right?
Most definitely. And I think the really exciting bit with AI is that everybody's already using it and they just don't realize. So people who, whatever tool they use to do a search on the internet, there's already an AI overlay on that. So before you'd get a list of things, if you typed in a question, you'd get a list of potential links to websites or internet pages. Now you get an answer. So you get an answer and then some links. So an AI overlay is already there, and I don't think people quite realize that yet. So we're already being nudged into the use of AI, and that links into Kamel's very good point about the democratization. I think what I'm currently seeing is where we're organically growing cloud infrastructure. So working with the hyperscalers in their sort of availability zones, so the regions they set up for the cloud to be in whichever area that they are. That's growing, but we're adding some AI overlays there. So we're increasing the density of power. So already AI is seeking in there. What we are seeing as well is a requirement, particularly in the Middle East, a real appetite for sovereign capability in AI. So being able to own and to push forward and to lead in some of the advancements for these models. At the moment, there's an awful lot of focus on the large language models, so really significant scales of learning, lots of detail, lots of tokens. But now with DeepSeek coming along, they've proved that actually you can get some really good outputs with much smaller models. So I think now what we might see particularly with sovereign requirements, is a proliferation of much smaller models with very specific outputs in mind. So think, if you're trying to find a solution to a particular health issue, you're perhaps analysing multiple hundreds and thousands of results from tests, I don't know, X-rays or something. AI can be used really well to do that, and you could use particular language models to do that. So I think we might see more scale out of smaller models. So multiple smaller models being built on the back of this sort of DeepSeek moment.
But there is a whole method to this madness, right? AI, it's not like a magic wand. You have to build your use cases, work on proof of concept. There's a whole thing that leads to a more mature adoption of AI. What I want to pick your brain on now is, what is your observation vis-a-vis AI adoption in the Middle East, specifically from the maturity point of view?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's, as I said, it's a journey, but what we have seen is we've seen a lot of investments being put into the region for AI, whether it's UAE, whether it's Saudi, whether it's many of the other GCC countries, they are really investing, and we've seen a lot of announcements and the billions and billions of dollars into that, whether it's building the digital infrastructure to support AI, whether to bring in the connectivity to support AI, or whether to put the regulations to support AI. So there is a very strong appetite into those investments, and we've seen during LEAP, during Capacity Middle East, and many of these announcements has
under a week.
Absolutely.
Billions of dollars.
Billions of dollars, absolutely billions and billions of dollars, which is great for the region. Now, but this brings us to the use of AI and to the applicability of AI. So what we have seen is some adoption in some key industries, mainly healthcare, financial services, manufacturing, oil and gas, where we see many Middle East-based organizations using AI into kind of vertical applications, like, for example, using AI and robotics within oil and gas to do preventive maintenance or monitoring, whether using AI into the healthcare sector from the ministries of health to basically gather the patients' records, analyze it, and we've seen reading, lot of analysis, reading, lot of application within the financial sector for fraud prevention. So we've seen verticalization within that, but at the same time we started seeing a kind of horizontal implementation of AI with now the current advancement of what we call agentic AI. This is basically using robotic agents or self-service agents in a multiple of customer related functions. So this is being deployed into telcos, being deployed into banks to serve customers better. And if you speak to some of those agentic AI agents, the experience, I had the chance to had a few of those, and it's really amazing. It's like speaking to a very, very smart subject matter expert that in some cases you would have paid thousands to get it, and now you're getting it part of your application. So definitely it will have a lot of impact on many sectors, and it's going to change many of the sectors, the way they operate, and we're speaking about healthcare, legal, content generation, customer service, and we're seeing a lot of application. And with the good thing now is the affordability becomes more, like we've mentioned, with the new model that require less computing power. It will fuel more innovation and more applications into AI. So really, really exciting days, and really looking forward to what this is going to bring to us in more of innovation and technology, and really changing lives and societies.
Don, what have you observed? Are we enthusiastic about adoption, or have we figured out what we can do with it yet?
And so I think it's somewhere in the middle. So we've had where you had the large language models and they were being created, and you had adoption for very specific use cases from what I would term intelligent customers. So whether it's a medical fraternity trying to figure out the next configuration of a drug or something, you've got very specialized users with specialized use cases using particular large language models or particularly synthesized models. Now, particularly with DeepSeek and with the AI overlays that I spoke about, that everybody is already having and using without quite realizing it, you can become a user of AI and you can explore AI and you can figure out what it can and can't do for you without needing to have an expert view on how a model works or how a model's been configured. So you can start to play with it more, and it can be more general and more easily adopted. So I think this sort of the DeepSeek moment will allow this sort of embedding of AI amongst everything that lots of people are doing, and it will help to understand what the use cases could be and to have sort of lower level use cases. So it's just helpful. It's just increasing productivity in some aspects rather than having a really specific, expensively built and synthesized model or set of uses that it's put to. So I really do think that this will help to further enhance the adoption of AI and speed it up significantly.
Now, the Middle East is already experiencing the data centers there have been dabbling in high performance computing. We're already talking about AI supercloud in the Middle East, plus there's quantum technology. How is this cocktail going to impact the digital infrastructure industry?
And so something that I'm already seeing, not only in the Middle East, but across Europe in our other data centers, is where we're having that overlay of AI. So even in what would have been a normal sort of cloud region data center, which would have a certain density of compute, so a certain level of compute power, the densities are increasing, and AI is the AI overlay is there on the cloud. So we're seeing that we're having to change the design of the data centers or enhance the design of the data centers. So we're sort of going through a little bit of a moment where we're sort of half normal cloud data center, maybe with a bit of AI overlay. So you need some slightly different cooling methodologies, maybe some liquid to liquid cooling versus air cooling. So we are having to design for everything at the moment, which I think will be slightly challenging. We need to sort of move along and either move to a fully liquid to liquid adopted AI facing data center or a normal cloud data center. At the moment we're in a sort of a hybrid world, which from a sustainability perspective and a capability perspective makes it quite difficult.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you in fact about how is AI impacting the way we are designing and building our data centers, and is this reflecting in investments that are taking place?
So definitely what we are started seeing is we're starting seeing more and more AI workload coming into our data centers. And this is impacting definitely the way we design and build those data centers in terms of optimizing the workload, in terms of the size of the data centers. So a few years back, for 5 megawatt was a big data center. And 2 years back, a 20 megawatt was like a big data center. Now we're talking 50, 60, 100 megawatt plus data centers to cater for these workloads. And this is now the new design that we're putting in the market, 50 plus megawatt data centers. And at the same time, this needs to be more of, as Don said, it has to be more of hybrid data centers because it has to cater to AI and non-AI. So we need to build two ways of cooling. So this is what we're doing in our data centers. So now in each data center, we have a hybrid cooling. So air cool for more like typical traditional workloads, and like more high level liquid cooled in the for AI workload. But in general, we also have seen a big increase in compute density, even for traditional workloads. So a few years back, like it's 4 kVA per rack was the norm. Now we're talking that's at least doubling, tripling. Now we see average of 10 kVA per rack, and for AI workload, this goes like 5, 6, 7, 10 times bigger than that. So 100 kVA per rack. So you need to optimize and design the data center for a completely different set of loads. And I agree with them. This pose challenges on how we design it and how we build it and how we put it. But definitely, we're working a lot of R&Ds behind that. As a global platform, putting more than 270 plus data centers. So we're trying to optimize across the platform.
I think there will also be at a point in the not too distant future, the edge really coming into its own. So when you move from the large language models and you're using AI and inference, so really close to the user and low latency workloads are needed more and more. I think there'll then be a sort of a spatter of smaller edge data centers, and you might even find that depending on the intensity of the workloads, some of those might need to be immersion cooled. So I could see there being, a real increase in the edge over the next coming years.
When you say edge, are you also referring to the modular data centers, the ones that are being specifically designed?
So just something that's closer to the user. So at the moment, for cloud infrastructure, for AI large language models, that they could be anywhere. The compute and the workload goes on, can be stopped and started. The latency doesn't matter. For cloud, it needs to be fairly close to the user, but that's sort of created in availability zones. So each of the hyperscale, the larger American IT companies have their cloud regions. So they create these zones where they have several, so 3 potentially data centers close to each other, so that workload can happen, and the latency to the end user is pretty good, so you don't get the buffering, the little circle. If you're trying to view Netflix, for example, the last thing you want is a little wizzy circle going around as you're wanting to see your film. You want that to be fairly quick. Edge computing, so the inference load. So think of something, probably the most obvious use case is maybe like a driverless car, where you need that workload to be happening. You need it to be there close to the user. So these edge data centers will have that inference workload. So it goes from the user and comes back very quickly, and it's being updated all the time as it infers what the next thing. Are you about to hit an object? Does the car need to move, for example? So I can see there being a proliferation of those as more and more use cases get put together, and you might find that some of the workloads in those are so intense that they need to be immersion cooled, for example. So yes, they could be modular, but they'll definitely be small.
Tom, where do you think the investments are going, training and inference wise? What are we building and where are we building it?
So within AI, as you know, there's the training modules and there's the inference modules. And training is very much, this is where now we're not talking 100 megawatt of data center, we're talking hundreds of megawatts, 500, 600 megawatt plus data centers for training. Now, currently, the majority of the trainings is happening in few countries, less than the number of your of one hand fingers, 2-3 countries. So majority US, and so this is like 90, 95, 99% of that happening in US, China, some of the larger countries. Now we're seeing more and more appetite to do training in more countries based on space and power availability, because we've seen many of the larger campuses where power is becoming an issue and grid becoming an issue. So we're seeing training coming to closer countries, within EMEA, within Middle East, so we're seeing that. However, from an inference point of view, I think we're seeing a big investment on these hybrid data centers, like 50 to 100 megawatt plus size data center. We see that is happening in many of the regions, and especially in the Middle East, where you've seen a lot of the announcements, us included, where we've announced many announcements into that space. And the good thing about the region here is, from a Middle East perspective, is that the geographical location and the access and the ability to access a wider population. I think from within the Middle East, you have access to almost like 2 billion people at less than 40 million millisecond of latency. That's a great position to be in. Availability of power, availability of land is also something that's really that's really great. And most importantly, the intention and the and the eagerness of the governments to get those investments into the countries. So we see that.
Yeah, because all these governments are very ambitious. They have all these plans, whether it's Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, everyone. So, do you find that kind of a support coming in from various governments? How helpful has it been?
I mean, this is very key. This is extremely helpful because we see that digitization and AI is becoming a key priority and parts of the national agenda, whether it's Vision 2030 in Saudi, Dubai 2033 in Dubai, or in Qatar, or in the UAE in general with the AI strategy. So we see a big support, for us and for all our digital infrastructure players, partners, and the ecosystem to bring that ecosystem here because they see it as a key strategic advantage, as a priority, and as a key enabler of economic growth and bringing FDI and growing the GDP. So we're seeing a lot of great initiatives from the various governments to facilitate that, and we're very, very grateful for this.
And that cannot be underestimated. The regulatory landscape is so important because yes, every country has ambition and intention, and I think globally we've seen all of those announcements. But being able to make an announcement versus having the regulatory landscape and the capability for people to easily deploy is very different. So a lot of other, particularly European countries, are challenged from a power perspective, a regulatory landscape perspective. EU has already made announcements around the regulatory impacts that they intend, and I think that it makes it difficult for big tech companies to deploy in these regions. So I do think we're in quite a moment where governments making their ambitions known versus actually setting out a landscape that enables big tech companies to come and invest and to deploy within the country. It's very different, and the landscape in the Middle East has been set out very well for that currently. Power is relatively cheap compared to particularly other power congested and power constrained European countries. So I think that the landscape has been set very well.
I'm going to come to power in a bit, but before that, I want to know, data is clearly the new oil. Government is moving away from oil-based economies and trying to focus more on technology and infrastructure, digital infrastructure as an economy driver. And that when data became the new oil, GPUs became the new diamonds because of AI. But in a post-DeepSeek world, what do we now do with GPUs? Where do you see that market going?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, GPUs are going to be still there. It's not like, and if you look at what's happening in the market, you see that the demand is not slowing down, it's increasing. We would say there's going to be a mix of demand between GPUs and non-GPUs. With GPUs, CPUs were still there. Like today, 80% of computing power, even more, is still on CPUs. So it's not going to disappear, and GPUs are not going to are going to grow. CPUs are going to grow. Quantum computing is going to grow. So the more demand we see, the more applications we see. So it will be more and more applications specifics where each workload will require its own set of computing processors. So that market is expected to grow like everything else. And as you said in the beginning, we cannot have enough of them. We cannot get our hands on enough of them. So definitely there's going to be a multiple computing evolutions. GPUs, CPUs, quantum. That's going to really be required to bring AI into mainstream and bring more and more applications into the hands of end users.
And DeepSeek has proved that you don't need literally the most up-to-date GPUs to have an impact and to create something that it is very useful. So a bit like cars, where you might not go out and buy the most up-to-date Ferrari, for example, but actually you can get a nearly new Ferrari and it still goes really blooming quick. So I think there's going to still be a requirement for new innovation, faster, higher levels of compute, but this helps us, I think, this DeepSeek moment helps us to realize that we can still make use of all of the existing GPUs and CPUs, and also the standard product lines that were already there. It helps us to be able to scale faster, I think, so to meet the demand better, not having to wait for the best new shiny thing to come along.
I want to take you back now to the question of power. We are seeing large-scale investments in renewable energy. There are these solar parks coming up, wind farms coming up across the Middle East. But how easy or difficult is it to have access to renewable energy or to switch to renewable energy when you have existing data centers or when you're building new data centers? How easy or difficult is it to get this clean green energy?
And so I don't think it's hard to get access to clean green energy, but I think the mix is really important. So something that every grid, so not just here in the Middle East, but globally, you can't just use renewable power, particularly if it's solar or if it's wind, because it's not always there. It's not constant enough. So you have to have something that then levels that out to give you that constant load. So whether that's grid scale batteries, whether it's a nuclear power, just something, maybe gas, etc. It's just got to be something that has that consistent base level. So I think the figuring out the configuration of the grids is the tricky bit, and we definitely don't have that right in Europe yet. But I think the great advantage that you have in the Middle East is where infrastructure is relatively new still compared to some of the very old infrastructure in the UK, for example. You're better able to adapt it and to ensure that it can accommodate all of these sort of renewables coming in, and also level it off with a good base load. So I think the opportunity in the Middle East is far better to be able to have that integration and to be able to have the access to green power as well as a consistent base load. But it still needs to be built, right? It's not quite there yet.
Kamel, how about you? Is nuclear an option in the Middle East?
I mean, look, the journey to green is going to be a hybrid. We've seen big investments from the region into renewable energy. We've seen the announcement of the largest solar park in the world in Dubai. We've seen the Masdar projects, a lot of initiatives in the kingdom, to bring almost more than 20 gigawatt of renewable energy into the grid. Now, we still believe that with the advance of AI and more of AI training modules moving into more in countries within the Middle East, that the demand for power and the demand for grid is going to increase, and we cannot discontinue any of the sources. Now, if you look at UAE today, 25% of the power that's feeding the country is generated through the 3 nuclear reactors. And there is a plan to increase that. So it's all feeds into the grid, and the grid feeds on the data center. So we are indirectly benefiting from this. And now we are in discussion with the government and with the power authority to see how we can be a key player in that. So all our data centers are currently covered by green energy through the certificates. So we buy certificates from the government to cover our energy. But now we are discussing with the government on innovative ways on kind of data center flexibility, where the data center can feed into the grid and benefit from the grid. So this is very, very exciting times. I've been last month in discussion with the International Energy Agency, IEA, in Paris. They had their big AI and energy conference, and there were a lot of discussion on a global level from how we can power that wave of AI, whether it's nuclear, renewables, grid. Definitely grid congestion is a key issue in Europe that we've seen. Luckily not in the Middle East, because the grid has been designed more modern and more new, and we hope that this is going not be an issue or any obstacle. But definitely the cooperation within us as digital infrastructure players, regulators, energy providers, and governments are going to be key to ensure that we have an AI renewable workloads.
Doc, as a major player in the digital infrastructure industry, what do you envision as a robust and reliable connectivity ecosystem? What would you want if you want to, expand your presence in the Middle East, grow stronger? If you had one ask, what would you ask for?
And so certainty is one of the most important things. So at the moment, in some countries, when you apply for a grid connection, it's not guaranteed. So you get offered it, but it's not guaranteed. And particularly in Europe, that's the case. And so I think being able to give certainty, and this is back to the regulatory landscape in the Middle East being helpful, being able to get given certainty of your grid connection, knowing when it's going to come, and knowing if there's some secondary infrastructure that needs building, a substation, for example, to accommodate that, knowing the precise timelines around that, and having confidence in that delivery is important. The second aspect that's important is knowing what the pathway to sort of a net zero grid is in the region, and there have been some great strides, as Kamel suggested. So there's a fantastic opportunity in the Middle East here to get the grid conundrum correct, and to really step ahead of European counterparts, because of the fantastic opportunity of having a much newer infrastructure from the beginning, that was sort of designed for the peak rather than being designed for a minimum workload and figuring out how to make the peak. There's an advantage here, but if we could just get that certainty and confidence in delivery to make sure that when we're putting in these larger data centers in particular, that the power is going to be there at the point that you need it.
Kamal, now moving on to the connectivity ecosystem in the Middle East, what is your assessment of it? Are we playing a catch-up game, or have we been thinking ahead and are sort of matching steps with the demand? Because there's been a huge boom in wake of AI. So is the connectivity infrastructure keeping up with the AI boom?
So look, we've seen a huge investments in connectivity in the Middle East in terms of the number of subsea cables landing into the region, and number of the new terrestrial routes being created to connect to the Middle East to the world. So definitely the telecom ecosystem and us as a neutral carrier neutral data centers are playing a big role into enriching that connectivity ecosystem and connecting the region to the world, and really localizing content into the region, because historically the content has been going around through the main European hubs and coming into the region. That's what we call the tromboning effect. Now we're seeing more and more content being localized. So this is great. We're seeing a big investment into there, more and more capacity being brought online, which is great effort from all the connectivity players in the region. So we see that advancing. Definitely, we need to work more on the regulations between the inter-countries and inter-region connectivity, because this is and I think the regulators are aware of that, and they are working on that. And very important, because today more and more AI workload are going to be location agnostic. So, and for you to put location AI in location, you need three things: space and power, and we have a lot of that. We have a lot of space and cheap power. You need regulatory on data access, data open access into data, and moving data. And I think the regulators are working into that. They have the vision to that. And you need connectivity, because you need to connect those data centers. And I think these three components, or these three areas, are very key to create a strong AI ecosystem into the region. And I know from our discussions with many of the key players in the market and key authorities, this is a top item in their agenda.
But when it comes to internet exchanges and international business exchanges and also peering infrastructure, where do we need to build it more? Where do we need to have our focus, not just in the Middle East, but also in North Africa?
I mean, look, I mean, internet exchange is a part of the ecosystem, and peering is a part of ecosystem that's more related, not really to AI, but no more of a content localization and more of digitization. So, and we've seen a lot of that. You know, we run our own exchanges and some of the data centers, and we're seeing a peak traffic in this. You know, and we've seen all the efforts from the government to link the exchanges together and to have an open access policy into data centers. So we need more exchanges. We need more carrier neutral data centers. We need more of these edge data centers where are going to be like a connectivity hubs. This is what we are busy putting, for example, in Muscat, where we've built our first connectivity hub in the region. It's not only to serve Oman, for example, that's to serve the region. We're building another, launching our next connectivity hub in Salalah, where we're expecting many cables to land. Some have been announced, some has not been announced. So, and this will create a kind of a connectivity ecosystem to bring in the region, connect Europe, Asia and Africa together through these central hubs. We have the largest connectivity hub in the whole of the Middle East Africa region in Dubai with our DX1, where we are hosting more than 100 plus network service providers. And we're hosting the largest exchange in the region, the UEIX. And these play a key role in bringing connectivity and bringing digitization to the region. And now with our expansion into Saudi that we've announced during LEAP, we're looking forward to bring that ecosystem into the kingdom as well and creating that big connectivity hub and for the region to become central to the global connectivity within the world.
This is the $1 billion investment announcement that was made at LEAP, right?
That's correct.
I see. John, let's go crystal ball gazing for a bit. 5 years into the future, how do you see the digital landscape? Or what do you foresee?
And so I see significant growth because if you think about AI and AI adoption, and particularly now, you know, that there's greater access to AI, this only accelerates the use, the consumption, and the generation of data. So there's going to be more data, and the more data that you have, then the more connectivity that you need, the more data centers you need, the more use cases you have, then the more you're going to need not only data centers but maybe edge data centers because there'll be more inference needed. So I can see it just accelerating. You know, that there's going to be an exponential increase. I think the important piece for us all as digital industry experts and facilitators is to ensure that we can enable this fantastic future, this digital future that not only this region but globally everybody wants and desires, but we can do it in a sustainable way. And I think particularly in the Middle East, because of the relative newness of the infrastructure compared to other, you know, European countries, for example, I think the opportunity is vast. The access to renewables, the nice young infrastructure, and the appetite and the regulatory framework. So I can see that the Middle East becoming a real hotbed because it chooses to and it wants to lean into this fantastic digital future.
Kamel, what are some of your closing remarks, observations? What do you see in the crystal ball?
I think we are at the most exciting times of our industry, you know, and in one of the most exciting regions for this industry, you know. So we've seen big momentum, really supported by the strong regulatory framework from the government, strong intentions and strong push to help the digital infrastructure thrive in the region. So we're really bullish on it. And we're really looking forward to grow that portfolio of digitization, you know. And very important is that also give us a lot of hope is the amount of investment being put into talent development. So we've seen a lot of investment in technical universities and data center specific curriculums to bring in more and more talents into our data centers, because the more we grow, the more the aim grows. We need people to run those data centers. So data centers don't run by themselves. We need the talents to run them. So we're seeing a lot in that, and that's great as well. At the same time, power and green power is a key topic that's being discussed, and we're seeing a lot in development in that and connectivity, of course, that we've discussed.
Thank you so much, Deborah Childs, Kamel Al Tawil. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was an honor and a pleasure to have you on our show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
And that's a wrap. This episode of W.Media Deep Dive is brought to you by Dubai Cloud and Data Center Convention that will take place on the 11th of September at the JW Marriott Marquis Hotel in Dubai. We will also be hosting our maiden edition of Dubai Interconnect World at the same venue on the same date. For more information or to share your feedback about this episode, do write to us at india@w.media. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Deborah Grey. We will see you in our next episode of W.Media Deep Dive. Bye for now.